You expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Written by Richard Maybaum and Michael J. Wilson, this was the first in a series of Bond films directed by the great John Glenn, one of my favorite Bond directors, 1981, For Your Eyes Only. For the longest time, every time I did a Bond film ranking, this was at the bottom of my list. At the absolute bottom, I wasn't a fan of this film at all. For many reasons. First of all, I thought it didn't look as beautiful as other Bond films. It was a little too down to earth for me. I think the darker performance of Roger Moore didn't fit what I wanted to see from Roger Moore. And I thought it had a weak villain. An uninteresting villain, which would be a crime for a Bond film. Having said that, my feelings about this film had completely changed over the years. As I grew a little older, I learned to appreciate it for what it is, and learned to appreciate the many aspects which make this a great Bond film. Today I even think it's one of Roger Moore's best James Bond films. The one that came before this was Moonraker, and like they always do with Moonraker, they went a little over the edge with the fantastic elements and the larger-than-life stuff and the sci-fi stuff, and they literally came back down to earth with this one. It's a rough on the edges, dark, gritty action spy thriller, and it's pretty realistic. It's pretty much the opposite of its predecessor. And Roger Moore gives a darker performance in this film, which is interesting. I would say this is something like a Dalton Bond film, but with Roger Moore in the role of Bond. If that makes any sense, but I think it does. I think this is pretty much what this is. The plot of this film is pretty simple. We got a classic McGuffin in the form of the ATEX system, which is used to coordinate the Royal Navy's fleet of Polaris submarines. And the KGB wants to get its hands on the thing. And very simple, but that's what a McGuffin is here for. To build a lot of tension and interesting situations around it. As we all know, Hitchcock was the one who first used the word MacGuffin, but that's another story. So pretty simple, and we got a lot of things from Fleming's short stories in there. For Your Eyes Only was a short story, and Risico. I love both of them, and we got some of the characters from those stories in the film. Our villain is Kristatos, Aristoteles Kristatos. And we don't know that he's the villain at first. This was something completely new for a Bond film. He comes off as an ally, like some Kerim Bey character or someone like this, or Felix Leiter, someone who's there to help Bond. But later in the film, we find out he's actually a villain. He's a drug smuggler, a Greek heroin smuggler, I guess, yeah. And, he got recruited by the KGB to obtain this ATEX system. And he manages to trick Bond, he manages to manipulate him against his opposites, because there's a character called Columbo, and he's also a little gangster, little smuggler, and he's in fact the ally. He's in fact a Kerim Bey character. And Kristatos tries to manipulate Bond to go against, his enemies. It's very interesting, and I thought as a child that Kristatos, played by the great Julian Glover, was a little uninteresting, because he wasn't a larger-than-life villain, but not only that, he does not get a lot of iconic lines like many of the Bond villains did. And I thought he was forgettable, but today I like him a lot. I think he's, first of all, as all of the Bond villains, a very charismatic actor with a very charismatic face and voice. Today I think it's the things that aren't said, the things between the lines, which make him such a threat, and such a menacing presence, because he's very charming, and yeah, you think he's Bond's ally, but you can always sense maybe there's something wrong with this guy. You aren't sure because he's very nice, but yeah, something's off about the man. And yeah, I think it makes me a little uncomfortable watching this, but in all the best ways. And when he finally shows his true face, it's pretty dark. Because he was such a nice guy, a charming guy, and you thought of him as an ally. And yeah, when you see how evil he actually is, it's a little, yeah, maybe it's a little shocking even. And I think that's very interesting for a Bond villain. I think it's a ballsy move, you know. They tried something completely new. They were going against people's expectations. And that's a dangerous thing to do for such a big franchise, you know, who depends on its success, on the success of its movies. It was a ballsy move. I respect that. I think Julian Glover is a great villain. And yeah, today I really enjoy Kristatos. There's an amazing scene which they took out of another Fleming novel, Live and Let Die, where Kristatos is dragging Bond and Melina behind the boat, you know, through shark-infested water, like shark bait, like living shark bait. And it's such an evil move. It's such a dark scene, and it's one of my favorite scenes in the Roger Moore era. You know, they got dragged through the water and sharks left and right, and they cut themselves on the coral reefs and everything like that. And Kristatos is clearly enjoying this. You know, not just killing Bonds, you know, using him as shark bait. That's amazing. It's such an amazing scene. Yes, it's and I like that that took a lot of Fleming stuff for this film. This film feels very Ian Fleming. If you had, maybe you haven't read the novels, but I can tell you, there's a lot of, how can I say this? You feel Fleming's presence, you know, and it's not only in the things which are took out of the novels, but the whole style of the film and how it feels. It feels very Fleming overall. And we got another great villain besides Kristatos named Emilio Locke. This is an assassin, and God, this guy is threatening. This guy is very scary. Scared me to death back in my childhood days because he's got such a cold and emotionless face, no expression on there at all, and clearly an absolute sociopath. And yeah, watching him, it's such a, yeah, again I get uncomfortable watching him. And the final confrontation between Bond and Locke is also one of the most iconic, best and one of the darkest moments in Bond history. You know, when this car ends up on that cliff, and Roger Moore, for maybe the only time, really enjoys killing someone, because Locke killed his ally Columbo, and you know, now Bond takes revenge, and it's a very gritty moment. And yet this film is about revenge in a lot of ways. Our Bond girl, played by Carol Bouquet, Emilia Havelock, you know, she's also from a Fleming novel. She's seeking revenge for the brutal murder of her parents. In the beginning of the movie, her parents get brutally murdered, and it's a really dark scene. Again, a very dark scene. Yeah, it was hard to watch back in my childhood days, and it's still hard to watch because, you know, you get a sense of this family dynamic and how they love each other, and she comes to visit her parents, and it's all nice and sunshiny, and, you know, then slowly there's this plane coming, and Hector Gonzalez, who's also an assassin hired by Kristatos, is killing the parents, is shooting them, and it's such a Wow, it's a very dark moment. Yeah, still to this day, it's hard to watch. And she's seeking revenge for this, and you can feel her pain, you can feel her anger. I think Carol Bouquet is an amazing actress. She really did a great job, and she's an intense Bond girl. You know, she's not a damsel in distress. She's not in the movie to just look beautiful. She's part of the plot. She's a main part of the plot, and she's a tough woman, and she's, you know, yeah, she's full of anger and rage and full of pain, and you can feel the pain. You can see it behind her eyes, and that makes her an intense character I really enjoy. So this movie is about revenge in a lot of ways, and as I said, even Bond takes revenge on Emilia Locke, which is pretty unusual for Bond, and especially for Roger Moore's Bond, because he was a little, you know, more charming and funny, and yeah, all of the Bonds are charming, but you know, a little more comedic. But not in this film. Yeah, he's still got his charms, and he's still very funny, but he portrays Bond in a little darker way, you know. And this starts at the first moment in the film. You see Bond visiting his Tracy Bond's grave, you know, his wife, played by Diana Rigg in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And this is the first time a Bond film mentioned her. And that's very interesting. And, you know, he visits her grave and puts some flowers there. That's the first scene of the film. So we already know, okay, this is a little darker. This is a little more serious. And yeah, a lot of people compare this film to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Yeah, because it, in a lot of ways, it feels like a continuation of the story. Because Bond is visiting the Tracy's grave, and we also have Blofeld in the beginning of the film in the pre-title sequence. The name of Blofeld isn't used because of, as I told you, there was a problem with the rights to the character, but it's clearly Blofeld, and he's still wearing a neck brace. You know, because at the end of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, he was wearing a neck brace when he murdered Bond's wife. So that's clearly Blofeld, and Bond is taking revenge on him and killing him in the beginning of the film. So yeah, it feels like a continuation of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and it also in style and in locations. There's a lot of ski action. And it has a similar feel to it, like On Her Majesty's Secret Service. It's pretty interesting, and today I also compare the films to each other, and both are pretty serious films. Both are more down-to-earth films. Yeah, they have a lot in common, and I even thought about watching them back to back. You know, it's very interesting. Talking about the pre-title sequence, it's one of my favorites in the entire Bond series. I love this. Also, such a simple plot point. Bond is in this helicopter, and Blofeld has a little device which makes him able to control the helicopter. So he's toying around with Bond, you know. Bond is inside of the helicopter, and Blofeld is just controlling the thing. And yeah, toying around with Bond, and he clearly enjoys every second of it. And I think it's very suspenseful. It's often the simplest ideas which are the most effective. And that's a perfect example for this. It's such a stupid, simple idea, but it's very effective. Because, you know, we are with Bond in the helicopter, and it's an interesting situation. And I love Blofeld's voice, you know, and his evil laugh, you know, and how he enjoys this. And you're now flying remote control airlines, you know, and I love this. It's such a fun scene. I know a lot of people don't like it as much as I do, but I love it. And this film has some of the greatest action scenes in Bond history, and for sure the best action of the Roger Moore era. Those action scenes are breathtaking. I cannot believe this was possible to do. We got an amazing ski chase, and ski chasing inside of a bobslide. I mean, how is that even possible? I mean, sitting inside of such a bob, going down such a slide, I don't know how fast it gets. Very, very fast, like a fast driving car or something. And, one wrong move and you get thrown out of it and break all of your bones, or you are dead immediately, I guess. And ski chasing inside of a bobslide, that's insane. And that's very dangerous to do. And that's again what makes this a great Bond film and what makes Bond films great in general. They do such breathtaking stunt work, such dangerous things, and it's all real. There's no back projection or something like that. It's real people driving down that bobslide and risking their lives while doing it. It's impressive. And there's an breathtaking climbing scene where Bond tries to climb this rock, but the villains are waiting for him, and he has to strike those climbing hooks into the rocks one by one to climb up this rock. But there's a bad guy waiting up there, and getting those climbing hooks out of the rock. And so they are going against each other, who's first, who. And there's this scene where the villain, takes out the climbing hook and Bond falls. I don't know, 20 meters or something, and gets caught, the last moment by one of those hooks, just one. And this was a moment, every time I watched this film with someone, they were catching their breaths. They were like, because it feels so painful, when he falls and he gets, there's a moment, it looks so dangerous. I can't believe this was possible. I cannot believe they really did that. Someone really did that stunt. It's unbelievable. I still, please watch this. It's better than any Mission Impossible film, or at least just as great. So this film has one of the best action in Bond history. And for that alone, and there's a ski jumping scene, where he's on this ramp and they try to shoot him and someone is jumping with him, and it's so dangerous, Ski jumping is a thing here in Austria. In wintertime, people are watching this on the TV. When I was a child, my parents watched this like, someone watches football or soccer or something. And winter sports is a big thing in Austria. So ski jumping, we all know, is a very dangerous thing to do. You're very high up in the air, going very fast. And doing an action scene around this is such a great idea, but also a very dangerous thing to do. And I just can't believe they really did this and accomplished what they accomplished. So I cannot talk enough about how great the action in this film is, and that's one of my main reasons for John Glenn to be one of my favorite Bond directors, because he does action like no one does. He did some of the greatest action scenes in Bond history, and I think he was one of the, comparing the other Roger Moore films with John Glenn's films, the action got better with Glenn. He really did a great job. So overall, this is an amazing film. It's a serious, down-to-earth, gritty spy thriller with over-the-top action scenes, down-to-earth, real action scenes, breathtaking action scenes, interesting villains, one of the best Bond girls, an interesting, much darker performance of Roger Moore. And if you enjoyed On Her Majesty's Secret Service, do yourself a favor and give this a rewatch, or maybe you watch it the first time. This if you liked On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I guess you will like this one, because they are pretty similar. One thing I forgot to mention is the music. For Your Eyes Only, the title track is one of the most iconic tracks of the franchise in Bond history. You will never forget it. Once you hear it, it stays there. It's a very classy track. I love it. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite Bond songs, For Your Eyes Only, performed by Sheena Easton. The score is maybe its only flaw, because it was it who did the score? Was it Bill Conti? I'm not sure now. Someone, the guy did also the music for Rocky. I know that, but I'm not sure what his name was. But the score was pretty strange for a Bond film. It wasn't, a John Barry score. It wasn't as beautiful, I think. It didn't always fit what's going on in the film. I don't know. Wasn't the biggest fan of the score. That's the movie's only flaw that I can think of at the moment. But other than that, it's an amazing James Bond film. Please do yourself a favor and give it a rewatch if you haven't seen it in a while. So thank you for watching. Love you, love the Bond community, and see you very soon.